You know, it's funny, I get asked quite often, how did I get into flying or why did I get into flying? And really it began back in 1994. I was doing youth work with junior high, high school, and college age young people and all over Alaska, and spending a lot of time traveling. As I was doing that, I really just kind of fell in love with the people of Alaska, and I became gripped with an epidemic that was happening in our state at that time, suicide. So many young people, especially in our state, were choosing a permanent solution for a temporary problem, and I really wanted to do something about that. So we started traveling with teams. We started an organization, a nonprofit called Carry the Cure, but we were still pretty limited by commercial travel and the schedules we could find in that regard. So one day I was hunting actually with a friend of mine who probably has spoken to more junior high and high school kids than anybody else in the world. His name is Dave Reaver. Dave is an interesting guy. He's a Vietnam veteran that had a phosphorus grenade blow up next to his face. Basically, he had it back to throw it, and a sniper bullet hit the grenade, and it went off a couple feet from his face. 40 pounds of his body fell off almost immediately. Just the story is just horrific, but Dave uses that story to talk to kids in a way that I've never heard anybody else talk. In the end, the punchline is, kids, I have scars on the outside, but some of you have scars on the inside. If I can make it, you can make it. Just giving kids hope. So we did tours together for several years in a row. We toured around Alaska. And so he knew what I did and I knew what he did. And when he heard my heart for especially remote Alaska, places where people hardly ever go. Like, I remember going to one of the villages in Alaska one time and getting off the jet and having one of our pastors just break down in tears. And I said, man, what's the matter? And he said, you're the first person outside this village that's come to visit me in over 2 years. It just, like, some of these kids out there feel completely abandoned, completely alone, don't know how to navigate through difficulties in life, facing all kinds of challenges. And so Dave was all about helping those kids, and he knew that I was too. And so he looked at me one day and he says, man, you need to learn how to fly. And I said, well, I've actually prayed about that a lot, but I was on a youth pastor salary and not making a lot of money, and I had 3 little kids, and I didn't know how I was ever going to do that. And he looked at me across the campfire and he said, well, if you can get yourself to Texas, I'll give you a place to live, a car to drive, and I'll have my pilot train you, and I'll pay for the airplane. And I looked at him and realized he was serious, and I said, well, I'm likely to take you up on that. And he just smiled real big and said, I hope you do. So that was September 15th, and November 1st, my family and I arrived in Texas, and true to his word, he gave us a place to stay and a car to drive, and I flew twice a day with Charlie, his chief pilot at the time. And 30 days later, I was signed off as a private pilot and came back to Alaska, and, a 45-hour pilot with no airplane and no Alaska time, and tried to rent an airplane to go to villages to do my thing, and they laughed me out of the airport, and didn't know what to do. But a friend of mine named Chet Godin, he took me under his wing. He had an airplane, and together we started flying all over Western Alaska. And before long, he threw the keys to his airplane to me and said, anytime you need this airplane, take it for what you're doing with it. I started flying all over the place. We had a team of people. Later, an airplane was donated again through Dave Reaver, who helped us get a Cherokee 6. And we flew that all over Alaska with teams, with bands, sound equipment. That airplane wound up burning up in a hangar fire one year, and a bunch of other things happened, and pretty soon our Air Force that we had was dwindled down. And sadly, I spent about 10 years not flying at all until finally I was able to save up and buy another airplane, which was a Piper Pacer PA-2220. And that sort of led me to where I am now. It's kind of a dream come true. Never dreamed I'd be able to own an airplane like this. Never dreamed I'd be able to do what I'm doing now. I'm so thankful for those people along the way that helped me. Having good people in your life is really a big deal.